Good morning. So, today I want to talk about a Gorean topic because there's been quite some time since I have made a video about the Gorean lifestyle, and I know I have some Gorean subscribers, so I thought it was about time. And what I want to discuss today is the "you are not my master, I don't have to call you master" syndrome that seems to be running rampant among some Gorean slaves. Now, first of all, I think that a lot of this comes from misunderstandings. Basically, when people come from a BDSM background, they are used to the terms master, mistress, and so on being excuse me personal terms defined by that relationship. So that, of course, there are differences to this. There are some BDSM lifestyles that have a more general terms to this, but for the most part, it's only applicable to that relationship. So that um, a slave is only owned by that one person. A slave is only a slave to that person he or she has chosen as their master and who has chosen them. They are on equal footing with everybody else. And also for many, master, mistress, sir, and so on becomes lovable terms. So that when someone who isn't in a relationship with that given free person calls them master, that is about the same thing as if I would go up to someone I don't know and call them honey. So yeah, however, within the Gorean lifestyle, slavery is institutional. And what I mean by that is that slave is a rank that's universal within the lifestyle. So that if you are a slave, you are below the rank of every free. And the title master or mistress doesn't really mean anything other than acknowledging this. It's a term of respect for that person because they outrank you. And I think that's where the misconceptions come, because a lot of the times, and I see this a lot on Gorean forums and message boards, where you have someone saying, yeah, but they're not my master, or but I'm not respecting that person. Yeah, but the point is that you're a slave. It's not your job to decide whether or not you respect a person, and it doesn't really matter if they're your master or not, because they outrank you. And of course, then you have the common argument, which is, yeah, but why should I show that person respect just because they have slapped a free person definition onto themselves? Yeah, but sort of, you also slapped a definition onto yourself. You have chosen to be a slave in the Gorean lifestyle. I assume nobody has forced you, or you should call the police immediately. So basically, what is expected when somebody says that you should adhere to this etiquette is that you should behave as the place you have chosen for yourself indicates. Also, it doesn't really matter if you respect that free person or not. First of all, it's not your place to determine if a free person is a Gorean, if they're worthy of respect, and so on, because you're a slave. It would be your master or mistress who determines such things. Secondly, it's a bit like uh, with most martial arts, you have dojo etiquette. And that means that if a senior student teach you something, you will bow to them and you will call them senpai, which is a term that basically means honored older student. It doesn't matter if you think that person is a complete asshole. You will bow to them and call them senpai and thank them for their instruction. Or you can stay out of that dojo. Because that's basically how things are done. And it can also be said the same as we don't do this in Norway. We are generally on first name basis with everyone. But in most nations, you will call someone you don't know for ma'am, sir, or with whatever terms apply for that nation. And especially this is common with when children addresses adults. It doesn't really matter if that child really think that Mr. Or Mrs. Johnson are assholes. I assume that their parents will look pretty poor on it if they go around and act that way. Now, another thing that's then very common is that these slaves throw a tantrum and say, but you can't enforce that, so no, that's correct. Gorean slavery is voluntary, nobody can enforce it other than your master mistress. However, what it does when a slave acts like this is that it reflects poorly on their owner. It's like when I see somebody who allows their dog to run around and poop in other people's yards and bark all night, I don't think that is a horrible dog. No, no. I think that the owner obviously have no control over this animal. So basically, the behavior of a slave reflects on their owner. And so it's not really the person that you don't like that you disrespect by not using the term master. It's your owner. And if you're not owned, well, then you're free. And of course, that's a whole different debate. Whatever or not somebody who wishes to be a Kajira should behave like one. But yeah, if you're owned, you reflect poorly on your master by behaving like that. So, really, I think that for the most part, this is all basically a misunderstanding. It is people who are still going by the assumption that you have in BDSM that the terms master or mistress is something that a person has to earn and that is unique to that relationship. That basically they are slave or submissive to the person that they are in a relationship with, that be one or several, but they are not submissive to everyone. But within the Gorean lifestyle, a slave is expected to be submissive towards every free, whether they like them or not. And I also see quite a few free doing this. They instruct their slaves to actually not call anyone but them master. And usually it comes from the same misconception that master is somehow an endearing term that should only be used for them. While in the Gorean lifestyle, master simply means someone of a much higher rank. So yeah, and then it comes to the idea that, well, Akachira should obey all three. And then of course we always get the counter, but this is Earth. You can't obey people. They could tell you to have unprotected sex with you and so on. Yeah, of course you have to use your head. This isn't gore. We don't have stabilizing serums that prevents all sorts of disease. And yeah, we don't have sleens and tarns either. So of course, if someone tells you, I want to have sex with you, you sort of smile and say, sorry. But the theory is still there, that a slave has to obey all three. Of course, the one they have to obey before all others is the one that owns them. But Kajira should show respect and as much obedience as possible to everyone who is free. Now, of course, if a free person says, send me all your money, then you say no. But even then you should say no in a polite manner. You shouldn't say, no asshole, not gonna happen. You should say, please forgive me, but that's an order I cannot comply with. Something like that. Again, because it's not a slave's place to determine what is not an acceptable order, or what is or is not acceptable behavior for free. All that a slave can determine is whether or not they are willing to do something, and then they have to put their own safety first. And of course, if their owner has given them instructions about not doing something, then of course they can also tell somebody ordering them to basically, no, I can't, my master has told me such and such, again in polite terms. However, if you are on an online debate and a free person tells you to drop it, you drop it. If you are at a Gorean event and a free person tells you to hang up their coat, you hang up their coat. If a free person asks you to get off your ass and fetch them a drink, it doesn't matter if you like that person or not, you go and do it. Because that, like it or not, is how slavery works within the Gorean context. It's institutional, meaning that a slave is a slave for everyone. She is not owned by everyone, of course, and her master has final say, but she is below everybody else in rank because she is a slave, she is property. She is not a citizen within the context, again, of the Gorean lifestyle. So, yeah, I think that a lot of these problems here comes from the idea that the Gorean lifestyle is exactly the same as BDSM, just with a bit of flavor, and it isn't. Slavery within the Gorean lifestyle is based on philosophical roots. It's based on the philosophical roots that not everybody deserves to be free, and not everybody has it in them to be free. That freedom is something you have to be willing to fight for and earn, and that some people, especially many women, actually have it better when they are not free. And that being free gives you certain privileges. Being free has a certain ability in and of itself, while being a slave means that that's your status. It's like if you go into an occult order, you usually have various degrees. So when you are a beginner, an apprentice, a neophyte, whatever that order calls it, you are below everybody else in rank. It doesn't really matter if you are used to a teacher and apprentice relationship where you only under in rank with your teacher. When you then enter that order, you are below everybody else in rank. And it is the same with Kajira, you are below everybody else in rank. Because you are a slave, you are not free. Freedom requires sacrifice, it requires the willingness to fight for it. And if freedom is not something you seek, if freedom is not something that you can honestly tell yourself that I would rather die than not be free, then that nobility isn't yours. And then you are below the rank of everybody who has that nobility and should act accordingly. Secondly, the Gorean lifestyle is rather ritualistic, meaning that there are etiquettes that are expected to follow both for free and slave. when dealing with other Goreans. This is also common in, for example, occult orders, martial arts groups, and so on. There are etiquettes. And it doesn't really then matter that much if you like that particular etiquette or not. Especially if you're a slave, you have to follow it because that's what's expected in when you are in good company of other Goreans. So that basically when you call a Gorean free person Master and Mistress, you are not saying you are my Master and Mistress. You are acknowledging their rank as free and your rank as slave, and that's it. And I know that I myself had some problems with this because I started as a BDSM submissive, and when I started to have dealings with in the Gorean community, I had a real problem with that because it was very difficult for me to call anybody but the man I love, Sir, Master, and so on, because for me that was an endearing term. And it was only when I started to recognize myself as Gorean and I started reading up on it that I saw that it doesn't mean the same. It's like take the term sister or brother. Now for me, calling somebody sister or brother means that they are very, very close to me. Either they have to be my actual sibling and I have one brother, or they have to be a friend who are so close to me that I consider them my spiritual siblings. So when I call somebody sister or brother and there are really only, well, the people I would call that would be my actual brother. It would be the members of my first coven, and it would be my best friend. Those are the only ones that I would consider sisters and brothers. But I'm also a member of an occult order where soror and fraters, so sister and brother, is common terms to refer to one another. And then it means something else. When I say sister and brother on someone not involved with that order, it means you are so close to me that you are my sibling, whatever it is, by blood or not. You are my sibling. But when I say that to someone within that order, it only means I acknowledge you as a member of the same occult order. It means something else because it has another context, and it is the same with calling somebody Master or Mistress as a slave within the Gorean community. Well, I'm a free woman now, but when I were a slave, it didn't mean the same. It meant then I acknowledge you as my superior. I acknowledge you as a free person and me as a slave. Therefore, you are master to me. And that didn't mean the same as when I, in a BDSM context, called my beloved master. Because then it meant the same as honey, my beloved, and so on. A word can have very different meaning depending on what context you use it in. And yeah. So I just felt like making this video because I feel that many people ignore this etiquette, and of course a free person it is their choice to tell their slave, don't follow this etiquette. They will then very often be considered of poor behavior by other free, but it is their choice to do so as a free person. I am just saying that very often people do this for the wrong reasons. They do this because they sort of add more personal meaning to the word master or mistress than is really there. It's like even without a Gorean context, the words master and mistress has been used quite extensively. That's where Miss and Mr. comes from. It was a general term of respect in earlier days. And that's really all it is within the Gorean culture. It is a term of respect. Because a slave is expected to respect all free, whatever or not she likes them, whatever or not she recognizes them as, she or he for that matter, recognizes them as free, because her master can say, I don't recognize Jenny over there as a free woman, or I don't recognize Liam over there as a free man. But a slave can't do that, because they are slaves. They have no right to judge the free. Therefore, they should use terms of general respect for anyone who considers themselves to be free. So yeah, that was my point. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. Have a great day, and blessed be.